The evening sky was painted in fading strokes of gold and purple, the kind that made everything look softer yet somehow heavier. Arjun sat on a rusted park bench, elbows on his knees, staring at the cracks between the cobblestones as if they might hold the answers he'd been searching for. The faint hum of traffic from the nearby street blended with the laughter of children chasing each other around the swings. He barely noticed. His world had grown painfully small, a worn-out wallet, a few coins, and the heavy silence of failure. Once, he had walked through this same park wearing a crisp shirt and a confident smile, pockets filled with the illusion of security. He'd treated his friends to dinner, bought new shoes just because he could, upgraded his phone before the old one even slowed down. He thought money would always come, it had always come before. But after losing his job when the company downsized, the flow stopped, and the silence that followed was louder than any noise he had ever known. Now, he sat there with only a few crumpled notes left, the edges damp from sweat and worry. His stomach growled, but he ignored it. He had learned to silence hunger with thoughts of tomorrow, though even tomorrow seemed unsure these days. He leaned back and watched people pass. A middle-aged woman in a bright sari was bargaining with a fruit vendor, laughing as she got an extra mango for free. A young couple sat under a tree, sharing a packet of roasted corn, smiling at each other like they had everything in the world. Even a stray dog trotted by with more purpose than he felt. For a long time, he just sat in that quiet envy, wondering how it had come to this. How could someone who once earned well, who once helped others, end up so empty? The truth hurt. He had never respected money. He had treated it like an endless stream meant only to make him feel good. He never saved, never invested, never thought of the future. He had wasted it, not because he spent it, but because he spent it without purpose. As he pulled out his wallet again, staring at the few notes left, he heard a weak voice beside him. "Brother, do you have a few coins? I haven't eaten all day." He turned his head. An old man stood there, frail, with sunken eyes and a beard turned gray with dust. His clothes were torn, his hands shaking slightly as he held them out. There was something painfully honest about the man's eyes, something that cut through Arjun's self-pity. Arjun froze. His instinct was to say no. After all, he barely had anything himself. Those few notes were all he had for dinner, maybe even for tomorrow. If he gave them away, what would he eat? What would he do? But as he looked at the man's trembling fingers and dry lips, a thought crossed his mind. This man hasn't eaten, and yet here I am, hoarding fear instead of food. His heart argued with his mind. The mind said, you need this more than he does. The heart whispered, maybe that's what you said every time you wasted money, maybe that's why you're here. Slowly, Arjun took out a 10-rupee note, the smallest he had, and handed it to the old man. The old man's eyes widened, as if Arjun had given him a fortune. "Thank you, son," he said in a trembling voice. "You don't know how much this means." He folded his hands in gratitude and smiled, a small, tired smile that reached his eyes. Arjun felt something stir inside him, something he hadn't felt in months, a strange peace. As the old man walked toward a tea stall, Arjun watched him order a small cup of tea and a biscuit. He drank slowly, savoring every sip as if it were the finest meal. For the first time, Arjun didn't feel the usual sting of loss after spending money. Instead, he felt light. He leaned back on the bench and let out a long breath. Maybe, he thought, it wasn't money that was the problem. Maybe it was how he had been using it. He had spent thousands on nights he couldn't even remember, on things that added nothing to his life, but that small note, that little act, had given him something real. As darkness crept over the park, Arjun stayed sitting there, lost in thought. A cool wind brushed past, carrying the scent of earth and street food. He watched as the vendor closed his stall, as lights flickered on one by one along the path. The old man was gone now, but his words lingered. You gave with heart, that's wealth. He thought about all the times he had wasted money trying to impress others. How he had chased comfort, not purpose. He remembered his mother's words from years ago. Money doesn't stay with those who don't respect it. It only listens to those who know its value. He used to laugh at that. Not anymore. Now he understood. Money was never meant to be worshipped or wasted. It was meant to be used, like a seed. You could throw it away and get nothing, or you could plant it with intention and let it grow. He looked up at the night sky, stars faint against the city haze, and whispered to himself, "I'll change. I'll make it right this time." As he stood to leave, his stomach growled again. He looked at the tea stall, tempted to buy something for himself. But he stopped. Instead of spending, he folded the remaining notes neatly, put them back in his wallet, and promised himself that tomorrow, he would start anew. He walked home through the quiet streets, his shadow long and thin under the dim streetlights. For the first time in a long while, his heart felt heavier than his wallet, but not with sadness, with resolve. He didn't know how or when, but he would find a way out of this. He would earn again, and this time, he would use every rupee with meaning. When he reached his small rented room, he lay on the thin mattress and closed his eyes. The hunger in his belly was sharp, but the peace in his heart was stronger. He had given away the little he had, and in return, he had received something money couldn't buy: perspective. And as sleep slowly took him, one question echoed in his mind, soft but powerful. Do you use money, or do you waste it? Weeks rolled into months, and the air that once carried hopelessness now carried something new: determination. Arjun woke up every morning before sunrise, not because he had somewhere special to go, but because he had promised himself he would never waste another day. He began taking small jobs, washing cars in the early morning, delivering groceries by afternoon, sweeping the floor of a mechanic shop in the evening. The money was little, often just enough for food and rent, but every coin he earned felt heavier with meaning than the salary he once took for granted. Gone were the days of thoughtless spending. Arjun now kept a small notebook in his pocket, his money diary. Every rupee he earned and spent was recorded. He wrote what it went to, why it was needed, and whether it was truly worth it. It wasn't about the amount anymore, it was about purpose. That single habit began to change him. Slowly, his wallet began to grow heavier, but more importantly, so did his sense of control. When he wasn't working, he went to the public library. It had free Wi-Fi and a quiet corner near the window where he sat for hours, borrowing books on marketing, finance, and self-improvement. He didn't understand much at first, the words were big, the concepts confusing, but he refused to give up. Every day, he learned something new. One afternoon, while cleaning the windows of a small cafe, he noticed the place was nearly empty despite its cozy charm. The owner, a man in his late 40s named Mr. Kapoor, sat behind the counter, scrolling through his phone with a sigh. Arjun finished cleaning and sat outside for his break, eating a simple meal of bread and bananas. His phone, old and cracked, balanced on his knee as he watched a YouTube video on digital marketing. From the doorway, Mr. Kapoor called out, "You understand that stuff?" Arjun looked up, surprised. "I'm trying to, sir. It's about how small businesses can promote themselves online." Mr. Kapoor chuckled. "And what good will that do for a car washer and delivery boy like you?" Arjun smiled faintly. "Maybe nothing today, but someday, it might change my life." The older man looked at him for a long moment, his expression softening. You've got spirit. I've been trying to attract more customers here, but I don't understand social media at all. Why don't you give it a try? Post something for my cafe. If it works, I'll pay you." Arjun's heart leapt. It was small, uncertain, but it was a chance. That night, after finishing his other jobs, he stayed up late using his phone and the cafe's free Wi-Fi. He created an Instagram page for Sunrise Cafe, and began posting photos of the food, the decor, and even short clips of coffee being poured into steaming cups. He wrote simple captions but with warmth, focusing on the feeling of comfort the cafe offered. Days passed. Then, something unexpected happened. People started coming in. First, a few curious locals who saw the posts. Then a couple of students who tagged their friends. Within a few weeks, the cafe began to buzz with life again. Mr. Kapoor's smile returned, and one morning he handed Arjun an envelope. Inside was not just money, but a note. "You've done more for my cafe than any ad agency ever could. Let's work together properly." For the first time in years, Arjun had a real job, one that used his mind, not just his hands. He learned quickly, reading every night, improving his skills day by day. Soon, other small businesses noticed the cafe's growing popularity and reached out for help. Mr. Kapoor encouraged him to take them on. "You've got the talent," he said. "Don't waste it, use it." And that was what Arjun did. With the small savings he had built up, he bought a second-hand laptop and began his own freelance work. He named his tiny startup, Purpose Digital. The name came from the lesson that had changed his life, that money without purpose is wasted, but money used with intention creates growth. Within a year, Arjun had a small team, 2 interns, both young and full of dreams, just like he once was. They worked from a rented room above the cafe where his journey had restarted. It wasn't fancy, but it was alive with energy. Posters of motivational quotes hung on the walls, and the whiteboard in the corner was filled with ideas and plans. One afternoon, as the sun streamed through the window, Arjun gathered his interns for a short meeting. He held a small coin between his fingers, a habit he had developed. The interns looked curious. He smiled and began softly, "You know, this coin once meant nothing to me. I used to spend hundreds like it without thinking, on things I didn't need, on moments that didn't matter. Then one day, I had almost nothing left but a few notes, and I gave one to a hungry man. That was the first time I used money instead of wasting it." The room fell silent. The interns watched him closely as he continued, "Money is like this coin, small, silent, and neutral. It doesn't know what to do until you tell it. You can waste it, you can hoard it, or you can use it. I wasted it for years and lost everything. But the moment I gave it purpose, it gave me a second life." He placed the coin on the table. "Every time you earn, ask yourself, is this money serving you, or are you serving it?" The interns nodded thoughtfully, their eyes shining with respect. For them, he wasn't just a boss, he was a living reminder that failure isn't final unless you stop learning. Later that evening, as the office lights dimmed, Arjun stood by the window, looking out at the city. He saw his reflection in the glass, the same face, but a different man. The fear, the shame, the helplessness of that night in the park were gone. In their place was quiet confidence, born not from wealth, but from wisdom. He thought of the old man again, the one who had thanked him for a 10-rupee note and blessed him. Arjun smiled faintly, whispering, "You were right, uncle. I found work. I found my purpose." Outside, the city buzzed with neon lights and noise, but inside his heart, there was peace. He had learned that true wealth wasn't about how much money one earned, it was about how wisely it was used, how much good it created, and how deeply it changed lives. As he turned off the last light and stepped out into the cool night, he felt the same hunger he once knew, but now it was a hunger for growth, for giving back, for teaching others what took him so long to understand. He looked up at the same sky that had watched him fall and whispered, "I don't waste money anymore, I use it." And as he walked home, his steps were steady, not rich yet, not perfect yet, but full of meaning.